Welcome to the GoodViral podcast.
We believe that people can and want to do more to help others.
So we invite you to join the conversation about the small and large ways that we can help people, animals, and the planet. We'll talk about real stories, like the turtle who had a straw stuck up its nose and how the video went viral in 2018 and changed the course of businesses like megacorp Disney to change their straws to paper. We'll exchange exciting ideas and meet with guests who are actively making a positive impact with their time on this earth.
You don't have to do much to inspire a lot. Through this podcast, we want to make things easier for people like yourself to get involved.
When good goes viral, the world gets better.
Welcome to another episode of the GoodViral podcast, everyone. Today we have a Host2Host episode with Demian and myself, where we are going to talk a lot about the belief system when it comes to good causes and good efforts. So I'm human, like everyone hopefully listening. Maybe we got some Martians listening and I'm not sure yet. I'll have to hear from NASA soon. When it comes to belief systems and motivating or inspiring yourself to take action on something, why does it fade? Why would a belief in a good cause or good efforts fade? Because we're taking efforts, but we're not seeing drastic results, especially immediately. When it comes to climate change or animal conservation, perhaps humanitarian efforts, we're just not seeing progress and we're not seeing things move forward. I get frustrated. I'm sure Demian's going to say he gets frustrated, and you're probably feeling frustrated yourself. Why even bother continue to move forward? So this podcast, we're going to talk a lot about the foundation of your belief and how we, and Demian and myself even, can enforce the belief to be stronger so that we can keep moving forward with our efforts to have a better world, have better lives, and have a better environment. So with that, I think I'm going to actually turn this over to Demian with a question. So Demian, when it comes to enforcing a belief system so that you continue to move forward, feel motivated to move forward in a good cause or a good effort, what are some things that you were challenged with, but also what are some things that you do to help overcome those challenges?
So for me, we were talking about, is belief enough, right, to keep us going? And it really, unfortunately, really isn't, because what I found is that for many, many years, I had these ideas in the back of my mind about some things I wanted to do with my life, and in terms of doing good out there and getting active and doing something important like we're doing with GoodViral. Just wanting to do that or just letting it simmer in the back of my mind really isn't enough. The problem is it doesn't really ever connect with the real world. For me, the answer to that question is, it's really all about action. I heard, I don't know who it was right now, but I heard this expression that activity cures all ills, right? And it's really interesting that I teach Kung Fu in Barcelona, as many of you know, and when I needed to do like a major advancement for myself this last time, I really needed to train like every single day. And there were a lot of days that I just didn't feel like doing it, But I found that if I went to my center, if I actually started doing something, like usually in the first 10 minutes, that sort of feeling of not wanting to do it would just completely vanish, and suddenly I'd be into it, I'd be interested, I'd be engaged. And so really, in that case, for me, it wasn't just knowing that I had to go there every day. But to make sure that I went and did something every day, I had to put some tools in place for myself. So for example, I had to say, okay, at this time every day, I'm going to be there. And then I'm going to start with this group of exercises. So that way there was no question as to what I was going to do when I got there. And then those group of exercises were generally what got me sort of going. And I knew that, right? So it was an accountability where, especially when we're talking about like doing good or supporting good causes or doing good actions in our lives, or simply fulfilling the things that we really want in our lives that we feel like we're not fulfilling. The problem with it is that a lot of times there's only accountability to ourselves. So if we let ourselves slide, right, it's like a diet, right? If you're the only one who cares if you're on a diet, then go ahead and have a little bit of chocolate cake, right? But if there's somebody else that you're being accountable to, in this case, for me, it was my system. I had to be accountable to my time. I had to be accountable to the activity because I knew that if I didn't do it, that I was going to miss an important day of training, or I would go late. My day of training would be weaker, basically. I wouldn't get as much done. So, so coming back to Good Viral, what we're here and what we're doing is, as we always say, we believe people can and want to do more to help others. And we are, Anastasia and I are very inspired by this idea. And this idea has caused us to take a lot of action, to be accountable to each other. But also, when we're not directly dealing with each other, we have to motivate ourselves, because a lot of the territory is new territory. We're, forging the path on many things that we're in many of the projects, you might say, that we're involved with. And so, how do we keep going? How do we, or more directly, how do you, the listener, keep going with the things that you want to do in your life? And it really is, not only, first you have to know that activity will kill the problem, the ill, right? Will, sorry, that's not the right word to say it, but activity will cure all ills, right? So you have to create a system for yourself that is something that is easy to follow, right? So for me, being somewhere at a certain time of day wasn't the hardest thing in the world, right? And so little simple things that I know I can do. Starting those first few exercises that I needed to do were basically easy, right? And then after I get going, then the hard part, and that's the hard part is when you have your creative juices flowing, your mind is going, you're actively engaged mentally or physically in what you're doing, and then you're at your full the level that you really need to be at to be able to do what it is you want to accomplish. You know that, and I know that sometimes we perform better than other times, right? And so yeah, so what do I do, or um, how to get going? What you need to do is you need to create yourself a system. And one thing that, in terms of being accountable to another person, if there's somebody that has some vested interest in the results, then keep that person informed of what's going on. Say, hey, look, I need somebody to be accountable to, so that I can make sure that I get done what it is that I want to do. So I'm going to do this, and I'll let you know when it's done. And then you can have that conversation with that person, that no, I didn't do it, or yes, I did it, right? And it's just simply this. It's like, sometimes I feel like, there's a lot of sort of, high achievers. You have this go, 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 go all the time. And that's just not, for me, that's just not a good life. That's not a happy life. I mean, we need a balance. We need to have the part where we're not going and where we're just relaxing and sort of, going with the flow and easy going. But on the other hand, sometimes we need to do things and get things done. So how do we strike that balance? Right. And I believe that the balance is comes down to one simple thing: is that if we are inspired to do something, we're probably going to do it. If we're not inspired to do something, then we're going to resist it. So the inspiration for me comes back to the original, um, the core principle that caused the idea in the first place. So with Good Viral, Anastasia and I, we know that we want to do more. We want to do these things. And if I start thinking about all the other different things that I could be thinking about, that we're involved in with or doing, sometimes I can lose sight of the reason why. But if I remember what the core of it is all about, then suddenly I feel like, oh, I really want to do that. I really want to do that. Okay, so what do I need to do right now? Okay, and so I start taking the action. I have a certain time. I start making the calls, sending the emails. I start doing the things that I need to do, and then suddenly it becomes easier, and I get going, and I start getting creative. So what about for you, Anastasia? So what is at the heart of this topic for you, really, rather than just directly piggybacking on what I said? You can, if you want, but what is but what is for you at the core of this topic?
Yeah, well, you know, like every human on this planet, I have procrastinated. I have felt demotivated or just deflated, I guess is the best way to put that. And, depressed, frankly. So, especially these last 2 years with, the pandemic and everything, depression is up, healing is also up, recoveries are up. but also relapses are up. So it's just kind of interesting about what you're really dealing with is either going to take a swing, right? And so it's very interesting to see the numbers of like um, suicides, as well as people who have completely recovered, or I guess you could say who are really entered a new phase of recovery from their addictions. And so this pandemic just heightened what's really going on for some people. And for me, it was a slow start, but this last like 6 months, just being very open with everyone, because I know a lot of people are dealing with this right now or have, is a really deep depression. And I've told you this as well, is that just dealing with some depression and pretty deep dive into depression. And so it is very, very hard just to accomplish one thing in a day sometimes. And I know a lot of people right now are resonating with that. But with GoodViral, I'm doing a lot of the marketing side. So I'm the one putting together the graphics, the video work, and putting things on social media. Kind of one person doing all of that is a lot. And sometimes doing all of that for all the platforms can take 8 to 10 hours to do the podcast edit, chop it all up, do all the graphics, put it out there. It's getting a little faster every time because, we're doing it more often, but it takes a lot. And so knowing that there's so much that I need to do in terms of a visual aspect for people to actually listen to the podcast and know we exist, right? And get our topic as well as our mission out there to the people of the world, sometimes that can also feel heavy. When you're dealing with like this low level of depression, it's very hard sometimes to just get up and feel like, okay, I'm just going to do one thumbnail today. Right. Sure. And that's kind of where I want to come in with the thought. A lot of these gurus out there, Tony Robbins being one of them, and Raman Sharma and Jay Shetty, and these personal development gurus, they talk a lot about taking action before you even feel motivated. And it's kind of that same idea like you were talking about with Kung Fu, and a lot of people can resonate with like the gym or exercise in general, is you don't feel like going to the gym at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, usually. I mean, I feel like you're crazy, awesome crazy if you do want to do that, but in a good way. But if you're wanting to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym, or you need to, you're not waking up and you're like, yeah, let's go. Like you're waking up and you're like, oh my God, I feel terrible. Do I really want to go to the gym, right? But taking action, actually going to that gym is your first step. And then when you're there, you're like, okay, I'm here. I might as well get something in. I'll just do, bicep curls just to get started, or I'll do walking on the treadmill just to do that one thing. And that one thing leads to 20 more exercises. And that leads to a half an hour, maybe even 45 minutes of a workout, right? So sometimes taking action leads to larger actions, and you're not feeling motivated to get started with that one action, but you take the action anyway, and then you feel motivated. So a lot of people, and including my past life, as I call it, because I definitely operated differently, is I would not even take that first action. I was just like, no, I'll do everything until I'm motivated or inspired. And there's definitely pieces of that are good for others. For me, and for a lot of people listening, they're not moving. And so sometimes it takes just taking that one action leads to motivation, which leads to inspiration. So a lot of people tend to get it backwards. They go, I need to be motivated. No, take that one step. Yeah. That's not true. Take that one step first, then you'll get motivated. Then you'll also be inspired to do more. So for me, sometimes, with this depression, if I can just get one thumbnail done, I'll do the thumbnail. And sometimes I'll just do the thumbnail, but most of the time I'll do the thumbnail and then I'll do everything else. So it's that one action that leads to everything. And so it kind of enforces that belief system. So, when we're looking at these good causes and these efforts that we're really working towards, is really a better environment, a healthier planet, saving a lot of animals and conservation efforts, because they are going extinct. And then there's humanitarian efforts really helping people have a better quality life, like drilling wells in different parts of the world with charity water. Every day, even the people who are doing those efforts on the ground level, that people who we are interviewing on this podcast, they have days that they do not feel motivated to get up and go move. I'm sure Christine Figgener, who is the sea turtle biologist, she's in our second episode, and I'm sure that she doesn't want to wake up at 3 a.m. sometimes to go and see sea turtles, who are hatching out of the beach and moving towards water. Every single time, like she's human too. There's going to be a day where she's just going, I do not want to get up. I'm so tired. I'm doing this day in and day out. And when you're feeling like the news is showing you, the news or media or even whatever you're reading is showing you the doom and gloom of the world, it's hard to continue to move forward in those efforts sometimes. So, this episode I feel is really important to me because enforcing your belief really helps you move forward anyway. No matter what the media is saying, no matter how people are naysaying your efforts, especially when it comes to recycling here in the States, there's a lot of controversy with recycle sometimes because it's like, oh, it just all goes to the trash. So does that mean we shouldn't recycle anyway? Doesn't that kind of give us a vote towards what we want to happen? Is to put it into the recycle bin versus the trash bin. It may not be perfect, and that definitely needs to improve. But if we stop all efforts, it's going to go to the trash landfill anyway. And so, really putting your stance out there with everyday actions is key to enforce your belief system. So even though I hate it most days, it's like, no, wake up at a certain time, go and do your exercise, go and do your personal development, whether that's, kung fu or it's journaling or whatever it may be. And then there's work, of course, and there's friends and family. But is there something that's really feeding your soul that you're doing every day too? I think you said this, Damian, so I might have to remind you what it's called, but Tony Robbins says something along the lines of do good to feel good. Is that right?
Mm, I don't know if he said it and I repeated it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean, I
recall
think it was
that.
in an
Yeah.
episode a while ago you said that. It was like Tony Robbins. I'm pretty sure that's what it fact check us, guys. Go and listen to our episodes. It must have. But I'm pretty sure it's Tony Robbins. Don't quote us now, but I'm pretty sure it's Tony Robbins. That was do good, feel good. And he does mention this, and a lot of other gurus, even, in religious sectors, they'll say it too, is to go and do good things for others, and they'll help you feel good about yourself. And to leave that out in the day or even the week is detrimental to spirit, I feel like.
Mhm,
And it doesn't
mhm,
have to be necessarily tied to a good cause, but good actions and good efforts are important, not only for your
mhm,
life, but it also inspires other people. So,
mhm,
all of this to put into a package or to tie it with a bow, as it were, is the world is feeling crappy right now. We're
mhm,
2 years into
mhm,
this pandemic. We're not feeling good about that for sure. There are people that have swung to either a really bad place or to a really good place, depending on where they were in the beginning or the middle. And we have some time to go and move forward with this pandemic. And so it's a really great time to kind of reflect, hey, what's my belief system? What changes do I really want to happen? And how am I reflecting that in my actions, whether it's for my own personal goals, worldly goals, etc. And
mhm,
so it's really asking those questions is what do you really believe in? And do your actions actually reflect them?
mhm,
And to maybe reevaluate that. So if you're listening to this podcast, maybe an exercise you could do right now is to write down some beliefs you have. I believe that, like for us, we believe that people can do more to help the world, people, and the planet, and animals. And so that's our belief system. So our actions should be reflecting that belief system. And it's basically to help people create a call to action for themselves. So if you're listening, what's a belief system that you have? You may have many, you may have just a few, and that's okay. But write them down and then ask the question, are you taking action on these belief systems? Or are you just being wishy washy about it? And then reevaluate
mhm.
how you want to reflect those belief systems.
Let me add to that last idea, because again, like I mentioned before, I had some ideas in the back of my mind of things that I always wanted to do. So that's something that you could also put into that list. You, the listener, is
Mm,
just take inventory, which is what writing down can do, because sometimes when you see it in front of you, it becomes more real. Is there anything that you've always wanted to do but just haven't done, or just
mm,
haven't started, or just haven't finished, right? So put that down in front of you, and think about your life and how you can move towards that. Maybe it's something that you need to take some steps first before you can get there, or maybe it's something that you can do right away. But there's, I think, what more than anything, what we're trying to uh, create with or inspire people to do with Good Viral is we're trying to inspire people to change their lives from a traditional life into a life that just involves being much more caring and
Mm,
giving much more to others. Because we really believe that if you give to others and you help others, then good things are going to happen to you in your life and for everybody else. And imagine what the world will be like if everybody adopted this attitude. And that's simply, we know that's not going to happen. Everybody's not going to, but if we can get enough people or a large number of people to do that in all different areas of life, then we can see some amazing results. And it starts with you, the listener. It starts with the things that you can do, and maybe some things that you're already doing, and not to take away from your amazing accomplishments, but really, this is what we're trying to do. Is we say that, down to the person who maybe hasn't ever done a single charitable thing in their life. So that person saying, hey, just choose something that you think would be an interesting way to give
mm,
back, either with your money or with your time, or just, with your support or your energy. But also people who do things. Maybe it's like, okay, well, how can I organize my life so that I can do more, right? And then you've also got the other extreme. There's some people out there that are just amazing givers and are constantly involved in, and we want to encourage those people and say, hey, keep going. What you're doing is important. And what you're doing is making a huge impact.
mm.
And and so really everybody, I think, needs to know that we're on your side. I mean, this is not, of course, we don't, we're not adopting any religious or political views, or we're not going to any one side or another. It's a very, very fundamental human thing, is that we believe that humans want to do good things. I mean, the whole idea of good things is what we're really all about. It's how we survive together as a human race. It's built into who we are, and and it's what we're simply, in my opinion, we just simply don't see enough of it out there. And that's why there's, to me, there's many problems in the world that are very, very urgent, that need attention, and they need attention now. But even if it's not such an urgent thing, maybe in your life it's just simply, I've always wanted to write a book, or maybe it's, I've always wanted to learn how to play guitar, or I've always wanted to maybe give more with my time. I mean, it could be volunteering with the Red Cross, or volunteering at a children's hospital. There's just so many endless things that can be done. This is the thing. If you do those things, your life will be better. It'll be immensely better than just going out with your friends or just getting a new PlayStation or Xbox. It'll be immensely better if you get involved with the real world and do real things. You'll start seeing results that you had never dreamed of, and or see, or like I said before, maybe some of you are already doing a lot of things, but it's like, keep going. and and just like Anastasia and I are talking about, the sometimes the things, when you feel the doubt, you feel that those traces of depression, or the strong depression, or whoever it is that, whatever it is that you experience, remember that the little actions and the accountability, those things are so important. And like Anastasia says, take an action first before you get the inspiration, right? But remember that, I mean, the inspiration was there at one point for you. That's what caused you to want to do something in the first place. So sometimes you need to go back to that, look at it again.
And I think there's that. As you were putting it when we were discussing what kind of episodes we want to talk about, you kept saying, basically the phrase of, if you feel like quitting, don't. And I think that does speak a lot of volumes, because quitting, people assume that if they're quitting, they have to quit everything. They can't do anything ever again. They have to completely put a full stop to that activity or to that effort. And I actually disagree with that. Um, I don't think you have to stop everything. So it may be, for a good example, I was in a leadership position for a speech club. It's called Toastmasters. It's international, so a lot of our listeners probably have heard of it or have been members themselves. Basically, you go to this club, and it's very inexpensive for, by the way, anyone who wants to improve their speaking or leadership skills. It's a great place to go. It's inexpensive, and it's actually a lot of fun. And So I joined because I wanted to be a public speaker at that time, and I did become a public speaker because of it, which was great. I joined to improve my speaking skills, and so when I joined, you can just be a member, and you know do your member things where you just show up and you play your role in that meeting, and whether that's a judge or timer or whatever. Moving forward, I entered into a leadership role where I was in charge of membership in that club. So I was in charge of, really making an effort to greet new people, see if they want to enroll, and do that paperwork process. And then also kind of follow up on people who had come in the past. So my job was basically enroll people and make sure they're happy with it and re-enroll. And so I started doing those things. But man, life got really busy. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I have to pull back on this a little bit. And because I was speaking a lot, which was a good problem, I was speaking a lot, I was getting on stages, and then life was getting in the way. And I was not fulfilling my duties for that club. Um, Now, you could take this example and you could put it into any effort out there, whether it's a cause that you're really involved with, volunteer work, whatever it may be, maybe even your job or your family. Um,
Mhm.
and so I was really not fulfilling the duties I needed to fulfill. And so when the time came for my leadership, and that was saying, hey, would you like to renew your leadership and member services? I said, no, I need to be back to being a member again. Because there were talks of like, hey, you should be like the club president. And I was like, absolutely not. I have no time. So I just pulled back and I became a member again. But that didn't mean that I stopped entirely because life got busy. It just meant that I needed to take back a little bit more or reduce the amount of responsibilities I had. So again, it kind of comes back to the good causes, even with GoodViral. We are putting a lot of efforts into GoodViral in our own time as we build this up so we can go full time with GoodViral, but life gets in the way. Like Damien, a few weeks ago, or maybe it was a couple months, you had a pipe burst that you had to deal with, and
Mhm.
that was a big issue. And then for me, I got sick, and so I was like down for a week, and you also got sick. And so it's like life happens, and you may have to pull back. And also, your energy for a good cause might go down because life and it gets in the way. But to quit it altogether, I would have you pause and ask that question: should I quit, or should I just reduce my allocated time and effort? Because sometimes it's just reducing so that you can get to a spot to where you can speed up. A good friend of mine, Kevin Kneble, I've interviewed him a couple times on other podcasts where I was a guest on there, and he's a really great big speaker. And he's got a nice energy about him, really calm and collected, really smart. And I love the quote he gives. He says, "Slow down to speed up." And because a lot of people, like what you're saying, it's just go, go, go all the time. I know my past projects and efforts, I'm working with people, and myself included, where we're just like, full steam ahead and getting so much done. But then you lose sight of so much. You get burnout. I know I have in the past of these projects. I got huge burnout, and I literally closed a business because of it, a business of mine. So burnout, we don't want burnout, right? But we don't want to quit at the same time. So reducing or reallocating energy and time is something that people don't tend to think about. They just think, oh, I'm not motivated, I'm not inspired, I don't have belief system, I'm frustrated, I'm burnt out. So they say just close everything like me. I was like, close my business entirely. When in all
And
reality,
can
I
I?
could have just
Mhm.
slowed down. And um, so I think the don't quit is really important. It's just reallocate and reassess.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, and you made me think of something I think is very important to mention here because of the topic. We're trying to get people to move forward or to stay in it, to keep going and to do the work that we all know is so valuable. And one thing that's come up for me many times, especially working with Anastasia, because she's so skilled in things that I'm not skilled in, is that sometimes I feel like it's like this big black box that I have to, I don't know what's in the black box, and I don't know how to do things. I'm not sure what to do, right? And I know that we all feel that way, especially when we're talking about some project or something that we want to do or something that there's so many things that we don't know how to do, and that black box, that fear of like not knowing, keeps us from moving. And the reality is, you don't have to know. You don't have to know. You just simply start taking action, and you will learn in your way the things that you need to learn in order to do what it is that you need to do. And also remember that once you start taking action, there are other people, connections that you're going to make that are going to fill in those gaps of the things that you don't know how to do. And so, but it's never going to happen if you just let that black box immobilize you. And so, just remember that that knowing the next step is not the important part. Taking the first step is the important part. Keeping on going, taking, once you take that first step, and it's like, again, we're not talking about, pulling energy from yourself when you have no energy. What we're talking about is using the inspiration that you have inside to cause you to take the energy that you naturally have towards the direction you want to go. So you do have it. I know you have it, and or else you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. And just take the action, and all of the little pieces of the puzzle would become more clear, at least for those first few steps. And probably on that, now that I mention it, once they do, there will be another black box. I mean, there always will be the series of things that you don't know, but that's part of the adventure. That's part of the process.
Especially with these big things that we're trying to solve. We mentioned this before in another podcast that we did, but we have such big problems that we are dealing with in terms of scale, right? So climate change and ice glaciers that are melting and the sea is acidifying and so on and so forth. It feels like it goes on and on and on. And then we see the media with war and conflict and death and all of that. And we just kind of go, how is this one thing going to change everything? Right. And it can be very deflating. And I think this goes to a big call to action that everybody has here, and everyone can agree to a point. Consistency is the only thing you can really do to gain success in anything, whether that's with you wanting to lose weight and diet, whether that is to improve your relationship. It takes work and it takes consistency. It doesn't take one big event to change everything. It's every single day you have micro steps. And so with these black boxes being climate change, and it's just like, how can we solve all of this? It's kind of like the hive effect, right? Beehive. You have one bee goes out and gets pollen and comes back to the hive and helps create honey and everything, right? If you have one bee doing all of that, that's for the entire hive. It's not going to work. So we have many bees who go out and do that. And it's all these little efforts that come back to the hive and create a plethora of honey, enough to where we are able to take some of that and be able to consume it ourselves as humans, if you're not vegan and into that space. So it's just really interesting to kind of remember that it is about you, and that you are doing the effort to be that one bee, to go to that one flower that day. But it's not about you, because there's a hive to feed, right? And this kind of comes with everything in terms of self-care, but care for others. You can't care for others unless you take care of yourself too. And so it's that one little bee has got to make sure that he's taking care of himself, and he's happy enough, and he's doing well enough, and he's passionate enough to go to that flower to get the pollen or whatever. I'm not even sure if they're just getting pollen, but whatever they're getting at that flower, nectar, I guess, and fly back to the hive, and for the collective to work together to have a prosperous life. So it is about you, but it also isn't about you. It's both.
Can you follow up? Can you follow up on? You said consistency. So what did you mean about that when you said?
Well, if you only go out to if you're a bee and you go out to the flower, and you only do that once, it's not going to feed the hive. It'll feed the hive for a moment, but you have to do it every day, as long as there's flowers, right? So same thing at the gym. You're not going to get ripped. You're not going to lose all the weight. You're not going to be a master at Kung Fu if you only do it once a year, right? It's consistency. And same thing with the environment. If you recycle once, it's not going to save the planet. It's better than not at all, but it's not going to save the planet in what you can contribute towards. So this is where we come into kind of that that collective idea, is consistency is key individually as well as collectively.
Hmm.
And so, and holding yourself accountable and others accountable is important to those efforts. And so this is where we kind of get into the conflict of burnout, right? I'm feeling like, for hypothetically, like if I'm that bee and I'm feeling like I'm having to go to more flowers than this other bee, then that's going to have me go through this feeling of burnout because I'm carrying more weight than what I feel like I can do. When you do that long term, that bee is going to wither and die, and this other bee is not going to necessarily wither and die in the same way, but it's going to wither and die because there's less honey. So it's an example of teamwork, but also accountability to self. And so that's kind of where like the idea of it is about you, but it also isn't, right? It's about you, but it's about the collective. So consistency as an individual is important because it also holds people accountable around you to continue the consistency as well. I know for me, I've made this example many times. My sister, she lived in Philadelphia and she was away from Colorado. In her world, recycling wasn't a thing. So when she moved back to Colorado and she moved in with me for a time, I'm a huge recycler. And so I was recycling everything. And so she started recycling. I was drinking really good water. She started drinking good water, right? My actions influenced her actions. And bad actions also can influence bad actions as well. So again, it's what kind of consistent actions are you doing? Because those consistent actions influence others to do the same. So this kind of comes back to the energy of belief. Tune into the inspiration, the motivation, and the belief system you have about certain causes, certain efforts that are going out into the world, and engage in them. Engagement, movement, action, right, is the inspiration that people really take. Words are words, right? We can be inspired by words, but it's the actions that they take with those words that really inspire us the most. That's why we lose a lot of faith with politicians. They get office, we're inspired by their words, but there's no action. And so very quickly, disbelief begins to set. So same thing with your own actions, right?
Well, I want to sum up just with one thing also, just to say that, we always say it at when good goes viral, the world gets better, and remember the mission that we're about here. And we're so glad and grateful that you all are there supporting our podcast, supporting our work and the activities that we're doing. And you can stay updated on our website, goodviral.org. And I'll let Anastasia plug the social media here in a minute. But I just want to say that that stay with us and keep going, because we really are in this together. I mean, this is a team effort. We are on the same team, and we are all trying to do the same thing. And it doesn't matter any of the differences that we may have, because we do have ultimately the same objective, which is simply trying to do good, because we believe that if we do so, the world will get better, our lives will get better, everything will get better. And that's what we want. And so keep up the good fight.
So thank you for being on another episode of GoodViral. If you are on any social media platform, we are on all of them, I think, except for Snapchat. We just opened up a Twitter account. So if you are a tweeter, you can definitely go over there and retweet or comment or like, and especially follow us for updates. We're going to be dropping all of our episodes on those platforms, as well as some extra content. So when it comes to good causes, and you can also find the tags to follow the good causes we interview as well. So it's a lot easier for you to navigate. So you can go to our Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter, and so on, and follow us on there. That'd be great. Thanks again for coming into another GoodViral podcast. We love that you are here, and get out there and take some action today, even if it's just a small little step in a big black box. Thank you for listening to the GoodViral podcast and being part of the conversation. If you are inspired by this episode, go to our website at goodviral.org, where you can find resources and listings from the episode to continue good efforts.
Like, comment, and share this episode to any or all of your social media channels. It's really easy to take a small action, and maybe you'll inspire a big result.
When good goes viral, the world gets better.